Hello, everybody. Welcome to Let's Talk Football. My name is John Halpin. Back here for another episode of Let's Talk Football. I have been gone for a couple weeks. I went to Japan and I had a wonderful, wonderful time. And it's great to be back. But as soon as I come back, Chris Palmer leaves for his own vacation. So we're going to be gone without Chris for a little while, but that's okay because I am still here to bring you all your football information. And man, there was a lot to catch up on. I'll just give you a brief overview of weeks 2, 3, and 4. Eagles and 49ers remain undefeated. They look like the juggernauts of the NFC. The Lions are still surprising, so keep your eye out for them. The Texans are a big surprise with C.J. Stroud, who might take away Rookie of the Year, and everyone in the AFC has at least one win and one loss, so everyone's kind of mortal in that regard. But there have been a lot of great games, a lot of great matchups, and I love to get through all of those through weeks 2, 3, and 4. But I want to move on to week 5 because we have so many great matchups on week 5. But of course, we have the matchup that this podcast lives for, and that is the Steelers and the Ravens. And I know what you're thinking. Well, like, why do I talk about the Steelers and the Ravens? Because, well, it's worth talking about. It really is. And we have a tradition here on Let's Talk Football where Palmer being the Steelers fan and myself being the Ravens fan, we dedicate an entire episode to the Ravens Steelers matchup because it's very worthy to talk about. And I want to continue that tradition even despite Palmer's absence. So, with that being said, I'm going to start talking about the game. And then after I talk about the game, I'm going to move on to our picks. I have both my picks for this upcoming week and Chris Palmer's picks for this upcoming week. And believe me, I will get into them and I will talk about each team along when the time comes. But right now, I want to talk about Ravens Steelers. Now, this matchup is very important to us because this is the matchup that at least got me into football. And I know I've probably said that multiple times on the podcast. It's just one of those great matchups. But this time around, it has a different feeling to it. It doesn't feel as nostalgic or as a grand matchup as it should be at this point in time. And what do I mean by that? So I want to start with the Ravens right now. Ravens right now at this current point in time, we're 3-1. We lead the AFC North, and we had some pretty good wins, at least in the time that I was gone. So we won week 1 against the Texans, who have been a very surprising team. Uh, Shout out to D'Amico Ryan and C.J. Stroud. They are really turning that organization around, and I hope they can pull it off because it's very interesting to watch. And I want to keep my eye on the Texans, and you should too, because they are really lighting it up in the AFC South. Um, week 2, we beat the Bengals in Cincinnati. A very crucial matchup going forward. The Bengals have actually been struggling very much on offense as of late. Full disclosure, I took Joe Burrow in fantasy football this year, and he has been shitting the bed for me. So, as a Ravens fan, I'm very happy that the Bengals are struggling. But man, my God, this has not been expected. Um, I'm really surprised at how bad they're struggling, but they did give us a fight. But the Ravens did manage to win 27-24, if I'm not mistaken, week 2. So that was a huge divisional matchup, and it gave us the lead in the AFC North. Week 3, we lost to the Colts in Baltimore to Gardner Minshew. It was a very sloppy game. I was very upset about that game, but I got to say, I really liked how our defense showed up. Kyle Hamilton, our safety, our second-year safety, he had 3 sacks in the first half, and that was very impressive for a defensive performance by him. There's a lot of young players for the Ravens that I'm going to talk about shortly that really deserve mentioning because a lot of young players are stepping up and really filling their roles nicely. Um, but we lost to the Colts. Shout out to them. It was a great game on their part, a very sloppy game on our part. And then we came back week 4 and we played against the Browns. Now, heading into that game, the Browns had the number 1 defense in the league. And we put up 28 points on offense on that game and held the Browns to only 3 points on defense, and it was a great performance by the Ravens. That's what I was looking for week one against the Texans, but it was great to see them do that against the Browns, and it was a great divisional win for us. So with that, we beat the Texans, the Bengals, Browns, and we head into Pittsburgh. So we're looking to at least beat all our division rivals at least once this year, and it's Ravens are looking good. Lamar is looking very good so far. He has 794 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception, but 220 rushing yards and 4 rushing touchdowns. So in total, he has over 1,000 yards from scrimmage, combined rushing and passing, and 8 touchdowns. That's very good by his standards. He's doing a very great job at what he does best. Zay Flowers, our rookie wide receiver, he is actually leading the Ravens in receiving yards with, 244 receiving yards on 24 receptions. So he's averaging about 10 yards a carry, which is amazing for a rookie so far. I would love for him to keep that going. Him and Lamar seem to have excellent chemistry together. He just has no receiving touchdowns, but that will come over time. I'm not worried about that. Uh, Obviously, week one we lose J.K. Dobbins out to injury with a torn Achilles, and I wish him a very speedy recovery. It's very unfortunate to lose someone week one like that. Oh, believe me, Jets fans, my heart goes out to you with Aaron Rodgers as well. That was very unfortunate. But I gotta say, we have Gus Edwards and Justice Hill filling the roles at running back, and they are doing an excellent job at that. Gus Edwards with 193 rushing yards and a touchdown, and Justice Hill with 83 yards and 2 touchdowns. So they're filling the roles very nicely, and despite J.K. Dobbins being injured. But I got to say, for me, I'm very impressed with the Ravens' defense so far. We shout out to a few players. Roquan Smith with 43 tackles at middle linebacker position. Uh, Ravens as a total defensive unit, we have 15 sacks for the year and 4 interceptions. So that is really good. And the fact that in 2 of the 4 games that we played, we did not allow our opponent to score a touchdown. I was very impressed with that. Shout out to 2 more players. Brandon Stevens, our cornerback number 21. He has actually been doing very good at the cornerback position with no Marlon Humphrey to help back him up. So I got to say, shout out to Brandon Stevens. He's doing an excellent job at the corner position. And Geno Stone, another 3-year player at the safety position. So him and Kyle Hamilton are really getting it done. Geno Stone has 2 interceptions this year, and he is doing a very good job in the backfield. The Ravens defense, I'm very impressed with the Ravens defense, and I think we have one of, not the best, but one of the best defenses this year. So I'm very excited for them heading into this game in particular, because now let's talk about the Steelers. The Steelers are 2-2 on the year. They lost week one to the 49ers. Both Home and I picked the Steelers week one, and obviously they got crushed by the 49ers, but the 49ers are just on a whole nother level, so I can't necessarily blame them for that. But the Steelers have not really been the Steelers that we expected them to be. They are struggling on offense. Now, week two, they played against the Browns, and the Steelers typically own the Browns very well, so they won that game. They won the following week against the Las Vegas Raiders. That was a very good game. Devontae Adams had 170 yards receiving with 2 touchdowns. He was a beast that game, and yet the Steelers still won that game. So it was a very impressive performance by them. But then last week against the Texans, Steelers lost 30-3, man. That was rough. That was a rough game to watch. They didn't even make it past the 50-yard line. And that was so upsetting to watch because offensively they have been struggling so far this year. They've been struggling very bad this year. The Steelers' offense, up to this point, through the first 4 games of the year, have only scored 4 total offensive touchdowns. I repeat, the Steelers' offense has only scored 4 touchdowns through the first 4 games this year. All have been by passing. They have zero rushing touchdowns at all. Now, it's not for the lack of trying. Najee Harris has 210 rushing yards, and that's pretty good for the first 4 games of the year. But my God, man, the Steelers are just struggling on offense. They can't seem to just move the ball down the field. And Chris Palmer and I, we've talked about it plenty of times before. And Palmer, I feel for him because he he's a broken record with Matt Canada. And it's not just him, it's the Steelers fan base in general. They say Matt Canada is a horrible offensive coordinator, and he's the reason why they are struggling on offense. And I partially agree with that. But Matt Canada is a symptom of the problem. He is a problem in Pittsburgh, but he is not the problem in Pittsburgh. I think the problem is just the Steelers' willingness to change. Their lack, they just don't change with the times. This has become a very offensively driven league. Quarterbacks are now mobile and can throw all over the field. We're at a point in time for football where players are the most athletic they have been, both offensively and defensively as well. So defensive athleticism has forced offensive players to grow. And the Steelers still remain rigid in their execution on offense. They keep trying to just be who they are. Steelers football, tough nose football, right? But they're not changing with the times. They're not being flexible enough. And obviously, week 1, Deontay Johnson goes out with a hamstring injury, and he's out for the year. Now, he was probably their best receiver now, but now they have George Pickens, they have Pat Freiermuth, they still have Najee, they have Jalen Warren as a second string running back. They have good offensive talent, but yet they can't seem to move the ball. I know, what was it, on the week 1, they had Kenny Pickett throw it for at least like 45 times that game. Now, I know they were behind against the 49ers, but I think they only ran the ball 10 times that entire game. There's no balance in the Steelers offense. There's just no balance. And they don't have those explosive playmakers like Antonio Brown with Big Ben back in the day, or Hines Ward, or Randall L., or Mendenhall, or all these great, illustrious Steelers playmakers. They don't have that anymore. They have to, if they're going to score the ball and they're going to score a touchdown, it's going to be on 8 to 10 play drives down the field. They can't get those cheap touchdowns anymore. They can't get those 40-yard bombs anymore. Defenses are just too good, and their offense is too predictable. So I think that Matt Canada needs to leave? Absolutely. He is the 5th offensive coordinator under Mike Tomlin. But I think that Matt Canada's presence and being in the offense is Mike Tomlin's decision, and therefore his fault on offense. So you can keep, in my opinion, and Palmer and I, we've discussed this back and forth. We've gone back and forth on this. Yes, Matt Canada is the problem, or he's not the problem. He is a problem, and he needs to go. Yes, I agree with that. But Mike Tomlin is allowing him to stay, and his allowance of him staying is going to keep the Steelers at where they are now, struggling offensively with a solid defense. The defense is fine. The defense is fine. The Steelers have, 13 sacks so far this year with 4 interceptions. That's just under what the Ravens are performing with in those stats. But TJ Watt has 6 sacks. Obviously, their defense is reliant on TJ Watt. I mean, as they should. He's a Hall of Fame caliber player, but at the same time, If he misses a couple games, your defense is going to suffer. That's just how it is. But their defense is fine for now. It's perfectly fine for now. It's their offense that's killing them. They couldn't get to the 50-yard line against the Texans, man. That's hard. That's so hard to do, and especially when you have some good talent there. George Pickens, he's a great wide receiver. You have Najee Harris, who's I thought he was going to be a bust this year. He was struggling this year, but no, he's doing what he's asked to do. But the Steelers are not they're not adapting to the times. And I get it. The Rooney family signed Matt Canada to an extension. Both Palma and I are very perplexed on why they would do that, especially with their struggles on offense. But let's be honest now. Did anyone say fire Matt Canada when the Steelers went 7-2 after their bye week? No. When things are good, you you don't tend to fix the problem, right? But when things are bad, it's very quick to blame Matt Canada and every. But honestly, Matt Canada still being there, that's on Mike Tomlin. Matt Canada staying in Pittsburgh is on Mike Tomlin. You can change offensive coordinators mid-season. You could fire them mid-season. The Ravens just got a new offensive coordinator this offseason. We got Todd Monken from Georgia. So coaches are not afraid to change offensive coordinators. But yet Mike Tomlin is. Matt Canada is the fifth offensive coordinator for the Steelers under Mike Tomlin's regime. So he's done it before. The Steelers have changed offensive coordinators before and have changed with it. I don't know. I don't understand why they keep him. But so long as they keep him, the blame on the Steelers' struggle, in my opinion, falls on Mike Tomlin. If you're a teacher, right, and you teach a a substitute teacher everything you know, right, but yet the substitute teacher is giving the wrong lessons to the class, but yet you still keep that substitute teacher there, right? Is that on them or on you for keeping them? Obviously, that's a bad analogy. I'm sorry for that, but you get the point, right? If you keep allowing the problem to happen, can you really be surprised on the outcome of it? That's just my opinion. Um, and so the Ravens come into Pittsburgh with a really solid defense and a great offense, and the Steelers have a solid defense, but their offense is very lackluster. Um, it's this game feels very one-sided. And it shouldn't feel that way. It shouldn't feel this one-sided. But yet, here we are. And who knows? Both Palma and I come into this game expecting the Ravens to win. We expect them to win. But Mike Tomlin knows how to play against the Steelers. He is an excellent coach, but his decision making can be questionable at times. But yet, at the end of the day, he's still a coach. He's still an excellent coach, one of the best in the league. And so he knows he's going to get his players to prepare for the Ravens. And who knows, this might be a very low scoring game. We've had that before. We've had games where it's like 16-13. And it just works out that way. So who knows? It could be very low scoring, but it could also be one-sided. But I was talking to Palmer earlier today, and he was saying that we should win by 20. God, I would love that. I would love that if we just absolutely just put up points on the board and just crush the Steelers. But Steelers are the Steelers, and so long as they have Mike Tomlin at the helm, they're going to be a competitive team. Um, their players are always going to be ready to play. It's just you have to utilize their skill set, utilize what's best for them. And I didn't even mention that Kenny Pickett got hurt last week. So there's a strong probability that Mitchell Trubisky is going to be starting for the Steelers. Who knows? Maybe that might be a spark in their offense. But Kenny Pickett is not the problem. Najee Harris is not the problem. George Pickens is not the problem. It's the coaching. The coaching and the coaching tree is the problem, but the fish stinks from the head down. That's just in my opinion. I just hope for the Steelers' sake that they're able to turn it around. And we saw last year that the Steelers can turn it around. Maybe on their bye week they are to do something like they did last year, where you go 2-6 into your bye week, and yet you come out 7-2. And that might be, who knows, maybe they pull that off this year. But looking at the stats and looking at the performance of the Steelers, it just looks too dire for them at this point in time. So faith in the Steelers is very low at this point in time, but they're still the Steelers, man. And so long as they have Mike Tomlin, they're not out completely. They may be down, but they're not out. So I just hope that this is a very close game. The Ravens-Steelers rivalry, we typically average, what was it, game margin is typically decided within less than 3 points. So what that means is the Ravens-Steelers games, those games are close. They're always close. So as much as Palmer thinks that we should win by 20, I can't. I would love to see that. I just don't see it happening. But but who knows? Week 5 in the NFL, there's still so much that can happen this year. There's still so much that can go on, and I'm excited for all of it. So, with that being said, that's our Ravens Steelers matchup this week. It's very one-sided. It's not typically like this, but I will say I'm still excited for this matchup, and I can't wait to watch this game. So, with that being said, I have our picks for this upcoming week. So Palma sent me in his picks for this week, and I'm gonna start picking these games for you guys. So we're gonna start with the Thursday night game, the Chicago Bears against the Washington Commanders. The Bears are winless this year. They're 0-4. Last week they had a 28-7 lead over the Broncos, and they blew it. So Bears are not looking too good, but they can put points up on the board, but they are struggling. They are really struggling. Washington, I can't even get a pulse on them. I don't know what the hell's going on in Washington, but I need to look at the numbers. I need to look at some of the tape. Some weeks they're good, some weeks they're not. But I gotta say, week 2 they beat the Broncos. An impressive comeback win for them. I gotta give that to Ron Rivera. That was a great win for them. But last week they almost beat the Eagles. But the Eagles won 34-31 in overtime. But the Washington fought. Washington is a very scrappy team, very fun to watch. So Thursday night, although on paper it looks like a dud game, don't turn off your TV for that game because both teams are very scrappy and they have a lot to play for this year. So with that being said, Thursday night, Chicago Bears, Washington Commanders. Who you got? I'll tell you who I got. I got the Washington Commanders to win that game. And I asked Chris Palmer the same thing. He's got the Commanders as well. So we're going to both go Commanders that game. So let's move on to Sunday during the day, the 1 o'clock game. Jacksonville Jaguars against the Buffalo Bills. Ooh, this should be a really good game. It's in Buffalo, so the weather shouldn't be a factor for this time of year, but it is going to be a great game to watch regardless. Both Actually, no, not both of us. We're actually split on this. Palma took the Jags on this one. Uh, a very interesting pick. I mean, the Jags did come off a win against the Falcons last week in London. London is their second home field advantage, so they come to New York after that long flight in London, and they come to Buffalo. I'm taking the Buffalo Bills to win that game. Buffalo has been very impressive. They lost week 1 to the Jets, but since then they have beaten the Raiders, the Commanders, and last week they beat the Dolphins, who looked unstoppable going into Buffalo. So they won 48-20, if I'm not mistaken. So Buffalo looks to be in peak form. The Jags, they are still kind of finding themselves at this point in time. They were a very hyped team going into this year, and as well as they should, but they uh, they had a lackluster performance week 2 against the Chiefs. Uh, they they did win against the Falcons, but they did lose to the Texans as well, and that was a big loss. That was a big divisional loss to them. So they're still trying to find their footing. But Palmer's taking the Jags, I'm taking the Bills, and that should be a very fun game to watch. So keep your eye out for that game. So let's move on to New Orleans Saints against the New England Patriots. This should be a very fun game to watch. I believe Derek Carr is going to be out this game. He got injured last week, if I'm not mistaken. And Mac Jones for the Patriots is still going to be playing, but he has been underperforming as of late. Last week they got absolutely decimated by the Cowboys, 38-3 in Dallas. Dallas is looking like a great team, but the Saints, they got Alvin Kamara back last week, but they lost to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So Saints, Pats, who you got? I'll tell you who I got. I got the Patriots winning this game. It's home. Saints seem to be struggling a little bit, and I think that injury to Derek Carr is really going to affect them going forward. Palma is taking the New Orleans Saints to win that game, so we are split on the Jags Bills and the Saints Patriots. So that's going to be a very interesting game to watch. Keep your eye out for that one. So let's move on to the AFC South with the Tennessee Titans and the Indianapolis Colts. The Colts, Anthony Richardson is looking good, but they can score points. They just can't win games, which is tough. But both the Titans and the Colts are 2-2. Everyone in the AFC South is 2-2 at the moment, so it's still anyone's game. I'm going to take the Titans over the Colts, and so is Palmer. He's going to be taking the Titans as well. It Titans just seem to have the Colts number. No matter who the coach is, no matter who the quarterback is, Mike Vrabel knows how to prepare his guys and beat the Colts. And Derrick Henry loves to eat against the Colts. He loves to feast on that Colts defense. So, with that being said, we're going to both be taking the Tennessee Titans to win against the Indianapolis Colts this upcoming Sunday. So, let's move on to our game of the week. That is the Ravens-Steelers. And obviously, I'm taking the Ravens to win that game. But in a surprising move, Palma is also taking the Ravens to win that game. Both of us are taking the Ravens to win this game. Palma has zero confidence in their offense, especially since that performance last week against the Texans. And I don't blame him. They looked bad. They looked really bad that week. And Ravens are coming into town. We beat the number one defense, Cleveland Browns. We beat the Bengals, beat the Texans. We are coming in, and we are coming in hot. A lot of young guys are stepping up to the plate. I like how the Ravens are looking. Steelers, I like how their defense looks, but I don't like their offense. I'm with Palma on that. So, with that being said, both Palma and I are taking the Ravens to win that game. That might be the first time Palma's taken the Ravens to beat the Steelers since him and I have done this podcast. I'll have to check the tapes, but it's a very surprising move. So let's move on to the Battle of the Big Cats. The Carolina Panthers and the Detroit Lions. Ooh, this should be a very fun game to watch. Carolina and Bryce Young, they're still a young team. They're still on the rebuild. They still have not yet won a game so far this year. They will at some point in time, but just not this week. The Lions look too good. They are probably the best team in the NFC North at the moment. They're probably better than the Vikings, the Bears, and the Packers. And last week they did beat the Packers in Green Bay. It was a thrashing, 34-20. So this week, both Palma and we are taking the Detroit Lions. We have been very heavy on the Lions the last couple of years under Dan Campbell, and with good reason. They are the number one passing offense in the league up to this point. So they are throwing the ball, they are slinging the ball. David Money Montgomery, he is running the ball. Lions looking really good. We are taking the Lions to win that game. So let's move on to Atlanta, and it's Houston against Atlanta. Both are very scrappy teams. I got to give a shout out to C.J. Stroud, man. He's looking really good. Bryce Young was picked number one overall by the Panthers, and then the number two overall was C.J. Stroud, and he is looking good so far in the first 4 games. He has 1,200 yards passing. That is amazing. He hasn't even thrown an interception yet this year. That's insane, and he's a rookie. He's looking phenomenal. Texans made a great pick, and I was big on C.J. Stroud too. Granted, I have a little favoritism towards Ohio State, but I gotta say, Houston's looking really good. I gotta also give a shout out to Bijan Robinson in Atlanta. He is absolutely carrying that team on the ground. Atlanta loves to run the ball. Algier and Bijan, they are just a dynamic duo. Um, but Desmond Ritter, personally, I just don't think he's the guy in Atlanta, man. They're giving him a shot. I'm glad they're giving him a shot, but I just don't think he's the guy in Atlanta. Um, but with that being said, both Palma and we are going to be taking the Houston Texans to beat the Atlanta Falcons this Sunday in Atlanta. So that should be a very fun game to watch. So let's move on. Let's move down to Miami. The Miami Dolphins against the New York Giants. Giants fans, my heart goes out to you, man. You guys have been creamed the last couple weeks. You had a great win against the Cardinals, right? But this past Monday night against the Seahawks, you got absolutely destroyed. It was embarrassing. It was so embarrassing. What was it? 11 sacks, like 3 turnovers. It was disgusting. Daniel Jones is looking like Daniel Jones from 2 years ago and 3 years ago rather than last year. I don't know what's going on. Actually, I do know what's going on. Their offensive line sucks. So they are just not giving him any time to throw the ball there's no running lanes. It's just a mess in New York right now. With that being said, Miami, they have a stellar offense, man. They could do it on the ground. They could do it through the air, and they just have a way to just do it. They scored 70 points against the Broncos 2 weeks ago. That's unheard of. 70 points? It's ridiculous. But they did lose to the Bills last week, 48-20. They come back to Miami, they come back angry. Both Palma and we're going to be taking the Dolphins to win that game. Giants fans, I'm sorry. It's going to be a long year for you guys this year. So I'm sorry for that. But Miami, you guys look like a great team. Stay healthy. If you could stay healthy, you guys are going to be a force to be reckoned with. So let's move on. Let's go to Arizona, where the Cincinnati Bengals are taking on the Arizona Cardinals. Now, both teams are 1-3. Yes, the Bengals are 1-3, which is crazy to think about. Joe Burrow and that offense, they are struggling. They are really struggling on offense, and it's really hard to pinpoint why. I'll have to look at the film to kind of see that, but the Cardinals, we expected the Cardinals to be pretty bad this year. New head coach, Kyler Murray is going to be out for a couple games. Their really only reliable person on offense is James Conner running the ball. He's a great running back. Joshua Dobbs, though, I have a tremendous respect for him as a person. He's a great person. But he's as a football player, he's a backup. He's really a backup. But with that being said, both teams are really struggling for different reasons, but different expectations. That's the thing. Everyone expected the Cardinals to be bad this year, but not everyone expected the Bengals to be this bad this year. Right out the gate, they're 1-3. They're really struggling. So, as a Ravens fan, I'm happy to see it. But for the Bengals, you should be pretty concerned for what they're looking like now. Otherwise, if they keep at this pace, it's going to be a very long season. So, with that being said, both Palma and we're still going to take the Bengals to win this game. If they don't win this game, we're going to have to talk about them. We're going to have to really discuss what's going on with them. So, Cincy, this should be a game for you guys to win. So, with that being said, let's move on to a game in the NFC, which I'm really looking forward to, and that's the Philadelphia Eagles and the Los Angeles Rams. Oh, in LA, in SoFi Stadium. I gotta say, Matt Stafford, he is back, baby. Through the first 4 games, he is the fourth. He has the fourth highest passing yards through the first 4 games this year. So he is slinging the ball. Philly is running it. DeAndre Swift looks like an absolute beast in the backfield. Jalen Hurts is doing his thing. He's absolutely killing it. He's probably the second best quarterback playing this in this league right now. And if he's playing at the rate he's playing right now, he might win that MVP this year, so don't be surprised. So Jalen Hurts is absolutely killing it. The Rams are looking a little better than what they did last year. They're just not getting the wins that they really need. They beat what was it? They're 2-2 right now. They beat the Seahawks and they beat the Colts, but they lost to the 49ers week 2, and then they lost. I forget who they lost to in week 3, but they're 2-2 at the moment. So now I will say their defense is not looking too good, but their offense is looking good. 2 shout outs. I want to give a shout out to Puka Nakua, the rookie wide receiver. He's number 17. He's looking very good for the Rams right now. He is a stud as a wide receiver in the absence of Cooper Kupp, and Tutu Atwell, who was also getting it done as the second string wide receiver for the Rams. So both they're running it, they're throwing very well, they're running very well. Their offense is good, defense is not so much. Now I will say this though, Philly is another team where their offense is clicking. They are putting up a lot of points and they are doing a phenomenal job through the first 4 games of the year. But I have a little bit of concern for their defense. Teams can throw on Philly. Washington was able to score 31 points against that Eagles defense. I don't think that Eagles defense is as strong as it once was. Excuse me. But Philly's still good, man. If they score 35 points and the defense allows 30, you could still win those games, man. But their teams can throw on them. And I think that's a big weakness in the secondary. So I got to see how they play out as the weeks go on. But I do love this matchup of the Eagles and the Rams. I think they match up very well to each other. They're kind of like a mirror to one another. They can throw the ball, they can run the ball. They have a great balance on offense and defense, but their secondary is just not as tight as it needs to be. With that being said, both Palma and we're going to be taking the Eagles to win that game. That's going to be a very fun game to watch, so I'm looking forward to that one. So let's move on to Denver. Let's move to Denver where the Jets take on the Broncos. Oh, man. Jets fans, my heart goes out to you, man, because you had all this hype throughout the year for Aaron Rodgers and stuff, and then week 1 happens, and then boom, torn Achilles, and you guys, the whole dynamic changes once that happened, and my heart goes out to you guys because that's a tough loss. Now you have Zach Wilson starting, and it's going to be looking like the Jets from last year rather than the new age Jets we expected this year. The Broncos, man, you had higher expectations this year with Sean Payton under the helm, but you guys have not been getting it done. You guys beat the Bears. You guys can score points, right? But your defense fucking sucks. You guys got 70 points on you 2 weeks ago, man, and you guys are just not getting it done. Which is ironic because their offense struggled last year and their defense was getting it done. But it's going to be tough, man. I really don't know about this game. I ask who you got. Both Palma and we're going to take the Jets this week. And I think if the Jets are going to win this game, you got to run the ball. You got to give it to Breece Hall. You got to give it to Dalvin Cook. Garrett Wilson's still a great wide receiver in the backfield. And Zach Wilson just came off his best game Sunday night against the Chiefs. They ultimately lost 23-20, but Zach Wilson played very good. He played very efficiently. A lot of penalties that should have been called and everything, but at the end of the day, it was a great performance by Zach Wilson. He did not lose them the game. It's just the Chiefs are the Chiefs, man, and they're going to keep going. So, with that being said, we're both going to take the Jets to beat the Broncos this upcoming week. Let's. Speaking of the Chiefs, it's the Chiefs and the Vikings. This is going to be one of the best best games of the year. Um, Again, both teams can score points. Both teams, their defense is a little lackluster, but I really like this game. But the Chiefs are the Chiefs. I'm going to take the Chiefs to win. Palmer's taking the Chiefs to win. But the Vikings, at least in my opinion, the Vikings are a lot better than their record suggests. They are a very capable offense. Justin Jefferson's getting it done. KJ Osborne's getting it done. Kirk Cousins, he's still a solid quarterback. And it's very easy to blame him for their struggles, but their defense is just not that good, man. And teams can score points on them. The Chargers were able to score points on them. Um, the Eagles are able to score points on them. So it's going to be very tough for the Vikings going forward. But I'm going to take the Chiefs to win this game. And Palmer's also going to take the Chiefs to win this game. So that brings us to the Sunday night primetime game. The Dallas Cowboys and the San Francisco 49ers. Woo, man. Divisional round rematch. This is going to be great. This is going to be a phenomenal game to watch. Please watch this game. The Dallas defense this year has been tremendous this year. They have been absolutely tremendous. Out of 16 quarters played, they have held their opponent scoreless for 7 out of 16 quarters. That's insane. That's insane to think about. Half the games that they've played, they've basically shut them out. It's ridiculous. But the offense for the 49ers is a juggernaut. Christian McCaffrey is an unstoppable force. Brock Purdy, he just can't stop winning. He just can't. And it's so impressive for the Niners that them and the Eagles look like the best teams in the NFC. And it's not hard to see why. And I can't wait for that Eagles-Niners matchup later on in the year because that's going to be phenomenal to watch. But the Cowboys, man, the Cowboys are a Super Bowl contending team. I know, yes, a lot of people drink the blue Kool-Aid and a lot of people laugh at those that drink the blue Kool-Aid. But the Cowboys' defense is legit. And their offense, if the Cowboys' offense and defense can both play at their supreme level and on the same game, they are unstoppable. They can play against anyone and beat anyone. But man, this is going to be a great game. I'm so excited for this game. But both Palma and I, we're going to be taking the 49ers to win this game. It's just they just can't stop winning, man. They just keep on winning and winning and winning. And shout out to Brock Purdy, man. He is getting it done. He is just getting it done for the 49ers, and he is looking good doing it. So, what a game. That's going to be a phenomenal game to watch. So let's move on to the last game of Week 5, and that is the Green Bay Packers against the Las Vegas Raiders. Woo, man. Raiders. Jimmy G looks to be hurt. At this point, at this recording, he looks like he's doubtful to play on Monday night. Jordan Love and the Packers, they came off a bad loss from the Lions, and they are angry. They're coming into Vegas angry. A lot of Raiders players, a lot of reports have been speculating that the Raiders players like Devontae Adams and Max Crosby are unhappy. So, who knows? Maybe keep in mind there's the trade deadline coming up soon. Who knows? Maybe some players from the Raiders get traded and they have to start a rebuild. And in my opinion, they should do that. They should welcome a rebuild because Jimmy G is not your quarterback for the future. He's your quarterback for now, but he's very injured. He's injury prone. That's why the Niners wanted to move off him. And they moved on to Trey Lance. That didn't work out, but they moved on to Brock Purdy, who fits like a glove. So for the Raiders, I hope for your sake that you just embrace a rebuild because the time is coming. So in regards to this game, this Monday night game, I'm taking the Packers to beat the Raiders Monday night. And so is Chris Palmer. He's taking the Packers to also beat the Raiders Monday night. And I know that's painful for him because he does have a soft spot in his heart for the Raiders. So, with that being said, that is our picks for the week. We have some phenomenal matchups this week, and I can't wait to see all of them. Um, Please tune in next week. I'm going to be talking about 3 teams next week. No specific games, just 3 teams next week. What teams do you want me to talk about? Please leave a comment down below, and I'll be sure to do my research and start talking about those teams, why they're successful, why they're struggling, and I'll have plenty of fun doing it, man, because there's so much to talk about in this 2023 football season. So, with that being said, if you like this video, please give a like, comment, subscribe, and I will be back next week for another episode of Let's Talk Football. Thank you very much.